In my work, I help entrepreneurs to turn their vision into operational flow without the conflict between control and creativity. That conflict can drain us and it can lead us to feel frustrated that we're not able to do our best visionary work because we're constantly in the ins and outs and the operations outside the business. Doing this, however, means that we need to, as micro business owners, be able to get our team to support us in creating our vision, to give us the time and headspace to lean into that, to do our deepest work. And today I want to just talk through a simple framework, which is in fact a simple phrase or question you can ask your staff when they possibly bring you a question during a one-to-one or a stand-up meeting, and how framing your response in this particular way will start developing them into the systems thinking kind of mentality you need in order for them to be part of the solution that allows you to do your greatest work.
So the question is this: how do entrepreneurs like us, who don't have an endless supply of cash, how do we leverage the best apps, virtual assistants, automation tools and systems to scale our businesses, increase our profits and have more time to do what we love to do each day? That is the question, and this podcast will give you the answer. My name's Dr. Steve Day and this is Systemize Your Success.
The inspiration for this episode came from my comms meeting this morning. And that comms meeting is where I deal with all of my communications across all my channels. I have a comms assistant who goes through all my inboxes and my channels on social media, gets rid of all the stuff that they can actually deal with, then comes back to me with the stuff that unsure about how to proceed, or things that I need to personally actually deal with because it's a personal question or there's no process around what it is that needs to be done. Yesterday there was a query from a client about their subscription, about what they have access to, etc. And I realized that we hadn't actually documented how our comms assistant can actually find that information and then reply directly back to the client, so I don't need to be involved. So when this question came up, I didn't say, okay, here is the answer to this. What I did was to use a phrase, which I think is one of the most powerful phrases that we as business owners, and if you're a manager, it will be the same for you as well. And the question is this: what do we need to put in place so you never have to ask me this question again? That is the opening up of the systems thinking mentality that we want in the business. I don't want to be somebody who is giving answers to questions. I want somebody who is there to solve big problems. I want to be the person who is leading the business and being the visionary of the business and coming up with the frameworks and coaching the clients and doing all that stuff that I do best, that gets me into my zone of highest genius so I can serve at the highest level and create the most value for the world. So if I'm constantly having to answer simple questions, that's going to take time away and energy away from me being able to do the stuff that I can only do, or the stuff that I should be doing in the business. And so this one simple question, what do we need to put in place so that you never have to ask me this question again, is a very, very powerful one. It puts the onus back onto the person who's asking the question to start thinking through a holistic solution. How do we manage uncertainty? How do we systemize the process of managing uncertainty? And how do we then actually create the systems whenever they come up, for whatever they're for, so that they are never asked twice? In a very simple form, you could just say like, oh, we just create an FAQ. When this question comes in, then this is what we do. But going a level deeper than that is I want to create in my business people that are thinking in this way from the outset. So if they ever get a query to something they don't know the answer to, rather than asking the question, what should I do next? I want them to come up with a solution. And that solution could be something like, hey, I've received this query and I don't know what the answer is. I think we need an accessible resource which explains the scenario behind this. So in this case, it was like the different subscriptions level we have, what access they have in terms of coaching and calls, etc., what their options are to upgrade or downgrade, etc. So it's basically creating, in this case, a sort of Wikipedia about our courses and stuff, and actually making that really accessible and making sure everybody knows about it. That's a very specific example, but keeping this generalized so it works for sort of any scenario. Instead of that person coming asking me, what should I respond to this? That's like level 1 stuff. Level 2 is, hey, I've had this question. I've looked at what I can find and I think I'm going to respond like this. Is this okay? That's what I call the ideas over issues framework. It's like they've actually thought about the solution before they ask me the question. That's good. But better is for them to come and say to me, hey, I've had this question. I've looked at the resources that are available. I couldn't find a definitive answer to what I actually need. My intention is to create a resource that collates everything together, check with you or the people involved to make sure that it is comprehensive and up to date, and to make sure that now when any question comes in related to this subject, they are directed to look at that resource. I also make sure that all the staff know about this if it's relevant to their role and where to find it. And I'll put something in place to make sure it's regularly checked and updated, so therefore it doesn't become out of date, which could then give the wrong answers to questions. I'm going to put this into XYZ repository. So for us, we have our knowledge base built into our community platform, and I'll make it private because it's only relevant to my company. This is the data I've got so far or what I could find. Can you just fill in the gaps, as I couldn't find this information anywhere, or tell me where I should go and get it? Can you see how amazing that would be if you as a business owner sat in a meeting and someone came to you, like, this is a simple thing, just an FAQ basically, like someone asking a question which they're asking for a reply to. That's all this is about. But if they come and present their question in that way, showing they've not only thought about going and actually trying to figure this out themselves, but also thinking about how do I create the system so this never has to come up in conversation ever again? What resources do I need to create? Where does this need to go? How do I communicate this with the team? How do I make sure it's kept up to date? That is a proper systems way of thinking. It's not about constraining people into systems. It's about empowering people. It's now saying that, like, any question that comes in about this type of topic, we now have something that you can go away and figure out how to answer it. It's not providing every question with a specific answer and a template to every single question that comes in. That's restrictive. That doesn't allow people to just use their common sense to actually just be a part of the solution, to see maybe the gaps in the system that's created and join them together themselves to create something that's meaningful. So if you create something that's too rigid and something new comes in, then there's no specific answer to something, and they may actually get a bit scared and not know what to do because everything else had a specific answer, but this thing doesn't. So I'm going to have to go and ask to see what I need to do next. Whereas if you generalize stuff and create resources that people can go to find information in general, then people can then, create their responses to specific questions by actually just using their common sense and looking at the data that's available. This is the way that I try to nurture and to train my team to think, to be a part of the systems creation within the business, to create resources that are future-proof, to create resources that prevent questions needing to be asked in meetings. And in doing this, we are creating people within the business that add value every single day. They are not bringing me problems anymore. They're bringing me solutions that create the systems that last the lifetime of my business. Once this is in place, it means that I will never have to answer a question again about subscriptions. As long as that document is kept up to date, I'm going to put something in place to make sure this is reviewed regularly and educating me. Maybe I'm the one who's going to come up with the new subscriptions. That's going to be for the time being anyway. So if I come up with a new subscription or change the access people have or whatever, I need to remember to go and update that. So that's part of the training, if you like. And it might not be me being responsible for it. It might be, say, the marketing person, or it could be the salesperson. Like, whoever is the manager of that system, they need to be aware this now exists and they are responsible for keeping it up to date. And therefore, going forward, whoever is in that role, it will be part of their job description to ensure this resource is maintained. And therefore, each and every of these small systems that we create within the business, these resources, these wikis that we create, the documents, the knowledge base, whatever it is, as long as they are set up correctly, they are future-proofing our business. So say we had a sales manager that was actually responsible for updating all of the overcoming objections questions that are used in our sales calls. We want to make sure that the next person coming in as the sales manager is not only aware that that document exists, but on their job description, on their position agreement, is actually explicitly stated that they are responsible for regularly updating that. We want to create a task on their task matrix to say, every 3 months or every time a change happens, that is where it needs to be updated. So they are totally aware of it, that it's flagged up on a regular basis for them to keep that updated. And also, again, if that person leaves, the next person coming in, it's obvious it needs to be done because it's part of their position agreement and it's already delegated to them on their task matrix. So this systems thinking is how we constantly develop our business. We reduce the need for human intervention and input on anything that happens more than once. And also we create systems that cover more than just the scenario that's coming up today. So if we go back to the original scenario, this was a specific question about somebody on a specific subscription, and they were asking about what access they have to resources or to coaching, for example. Now, this is a very specific scenario. However, by creating that document and thinking beyond this one scenario, we're thinking like this could be anybody on any of our products ever, and they could ask any question about the access they have or about the options for upgrading, downgrading. That's the resource we want to make. And that can then be used whenever a question comes in. So now on our comms management rules, it's any question about subscriptions, upgrading, downgrading, access to resources, access to coaching, etc. Anything that covering any of those scenarios, we just need to have one rule that says, go and look at this resource and it will tell you the answers that you need. Therefore, we've created this incredible future-proofing system that covers every scenario that exists today, but also that may exist in the future, i.e. new products and services that we offer. And it also minimizes the amount of options, if you like, to actually think about where do I go to get the resource. So any question regarding subscriptions, we now know where to go. Cool, that's it for today. If you've enjoyed this episode, please do hit subscribe. Subscribing means that I know I'm on the right track. I'm actually creating content of value that you actually want to listen to, and I will do more of it. If you have found this useful, please do comment or leave us a review and just let me know what you'd love to hear more about, and I will do my best to please. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.